The morning had been so still that even the air seemed reluctant to move. I was parked outside the Starbucks on Maple Ridge Drive in my cherry red convertible, enjoying the last few quiet minutes before diving into another day of debugging code. My vanilla latte hovered halfway to my mouth as I stared, genuinely stunned, at the woman who had just launched herself into the passenger seat like she was escaping a heist gone wrong. For a full 5 seconds, I could only blink at her. Barbara Kessler, Pine Valley Estates, notoriously overbearing HOA president-or, as she preferred to call herself, the duly elected guardian of community standards, sat primly in my car, adjusting her oversized sunglasses as though nothing were out of the ordinary. "Barbara," I finally managed, lowering my coffee, "you literally just jumped into my car, without asking. That's not how anything works." She sniffed with practiced superiority and smoothed the front of her navy blazer, the blazer she always wore, the one with HOA president embroidered in gaudy gold thread, as if she were some kind of suburban monarch. "As the duly elected president of Pine Valley Estates for the past 7 years, she began, enunciating each word like she was lecturing an unruly kindergarten class, "I have executive transit privileges during community emergencies, as outlined in subsection 47B of the Covenant. Now drive, we are wasting valuable enforcement time." I stared at her. Then, very calmly, I placed my coffee in the cup holder, reached for my phone, and dialed 911. The dispatcher sounded like she had been enjoying a peaceful shift, right up until I explained that my HOA president had forcibly entered my vehicle and was refusing to leave. By the time I hung up, Barbara was sputtering about betrayal, mutiny, and insubordination, as though we lived in some sort of feudal kingdom, and I had just defied her royal decree. 20 minutes later, Barbara was sitting in handcuffs outside, trying unsuccessfully to convince Officer Daniels that she held some kind of civic authority granting her the right to commandeer residents' property. He looked like he was fighting not to laugh as he read her rights, but to explain why this moment was both shocking and long overdue. "You need to understand how I ended up with the most infamous HOA president in 3 counties getting arrested in my passenger seat. My name is Mitchell Brennan. I'm 41, a software developer who works from home. And 3 years ago I moved into Pine Valley Estates because the realtor promised lush nature, safe streets, and a vibrant community. What she did not clarify was that vibrant meant policed with the intensity of a medieval witch hunter by one Barbara Kessler. Barbara was 53 and 5'2", but she carried herself with the authority of a general leading troops into battle. She was always armed with her clipboard, polished, laminated, color-coded, like some kind of ceremonial staff, and she patrolled the community as though she alone protected civilization from collapse. She had run unopposed for HOA president since 2017, partly because no one wanted the job, and partly because anyone who considered running against her suddenly found themselves drowning in violation notices. The Johnsons once received an $800 fine because their trash cans were visible for a grand total of 37 minutes past the pickup window. She measured grass height with a ruler every Tuesday. She had spreadsheets tracking 10 years of resident infractions, organized by severity, color, recurrence, and potential property value impact. My trouble with her began 6 months ago when I made the unforgivable mistake of repainting my front door. I chose a deep navy blue. She arrived within hours, her expression tighter than a drum. "Mr. Brennan," she said, voice stiff as a snapped twig, "your door violates Section 1(c) of the approved exterior palette." I actually laughed. I thought she was kidding. I showed her that my shade was nearly identical to the approved colonial blue. Barbara, without hesitation, reached into her purse and produced a spectrometer. A real spectrometer. She scanned my door, studied the reading, and triumphantly announced, 3 shades too dark. That was when I realized that Barbara either needed a hobby, a therapist, or possibly an exorcism. I repainted the door. She was not satisfied. She had discovered prey. The next months were a parade of absurd citations. My mailbox, she claimed, sat 2 degrees off perpendicular. My driveway had an oil stain impacting aesthetic cohesion. My lavender bushes attracted excessive butterflies, allegedly creating an unregulated pollinator congregation zone. She issued that one, with a straight face. Then came the email about a mandatory seminar on hedge trimming techniques. Hedges I did not have. The email was written entirely in caps with multiple red exclamation marks. When I replied that I had a prior commitment sleep, she arrived at my door at 6:30 a.m. blasting the community anthem through a portable speaker. I didn't even know we had an anthem. By then, I'd begun collecting her notices in a folder, a museum of madness. My favorites included automotive flamboyance for my red convertible and nocturnal luminosity, excess because my porch light was allegedly too bright. Things escalated when she declared an aesthetic emergency because the Garcia family planted pink roses instead of red. She claimed Emergency Protocol 7, which did not exist, gave her expanded authority. That brings us to Thursday morning. I left home craving caffeine, parked near Starbucks, and the next thing I knew, Barbara vaulted into my convertible like a suburban action hero. "I require transportation," she declared. "Immediate transportation." I, meanwhile, dialed 911. She didn't notice until halfway through the call, at which point she shrieked, "You cannot call the police on me. I am acting in official HOA capacity." Her face turned a shade of purple I had only ever seen on malfunctioning printers. She lunged for my phone. I leaned away and calmly informed the dispatcher that she was attempting to assault me. When the officers arrived, Daniels approached with a kind of caution normally reserved for wild animals. "Sir, you reported someone trespassing in your vehicle?" I nodded toward Barbara, who sat ramrod straight, chin lifted high, attempting to channel a queen about to knight someone. Officer Daniels asked her to exit the vehicle. She refused. She cited imaginary subsections. She flashed her laminated authority card. She proclaimed jurisdiction. Ramirez, the younger officer, kept turning away so she wouldn't see him laugh. Finally, Daniels sighed. "Ma'am, if you don't exit voluntarily, you'll be arrested for trespassing." Barbara responded by clicking her seatbelt in place. And that is how she was pulled out of my car and placed in cuffs while proclaiming an HOA uprising. The video hit the neighborhood page within hours. The comments were merciless. Turns out practically everyone in the community had suffered under Barbara's reign. People shared their own outrageous citations: grass to green, squirrels eating from bird feeders, excessive holiday cheer in January. It was a digital support group for the victims of one woman's bureaucratic tyranny. The emergency HOA board meeting scheduled by Barbara herself was held without her. Vice President Reynolds, mild-mannered and perpetually tired, opened the meeting by suspending her from all duties pending legal proceedings. The vote was unanimous. I was invited to testify at the disciplinary hearing a week later. I arrived with my folder of insanity and video footage of her measuring my grass at 5 in the morning. The board looked horrified. They reviewed her claims of emergency powers, none of which existed, and began uncovering years of misconduct, misappropriation of funds, fabricated violations, and even the hiring of a private investigator to monitor residents' trash habits. That discovery led to criminal charges. Barbara hired an extremely expensive attorney who claimed she had implied consent to use my car because of community norms. The prosecutor disagreed strongly. Not only did Barbara's belief in her own authority incriminate her, but the investigation revealed she'd embezzled HOA money to buy gadgets like her spectrometer and kept portions of the fines for herself. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Barbara was found guilty of criminal trespassing, attempted unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, and misappropriation of HOA funds. The judge, a man who looked like he'd seen every flavor of human nonsense, called it the most bizarre example of HOA overreach in his 30-year career. Her sentence? 6 months in jail, suspended 2 times served, 2 years probation, $25,000 restitution to the HOA, and $5,000 to me. She was permanently banned from any HOA position, ordered to complete 100 hours of community service, assisting residents she had previously fined, and required to attend a 12-week course on healthy leadership boundaries. Her personal life fell apart next. The real estate firm where she worked fired her immediately. Her license was suspended. Legal costs drained another $30,000 of her savings. She sold her Lexus and bought a used Honda Civic. Even her own beloved rulebook bit her. She received a $50 fine for leaving her trash cans out past the retrieval window, a rule she herself had written. She paid it without a word. 6 months later, I saw her at a grocery store. She was working the register, wearing a polyester uniform and a name tag that read simply Barbara, the former queen of Pine Valley Estates, the woman who once treated me like a foot soldier in her private armor, small in a way I had never seen before. She scanned my items silently. When she reached the standard question, her voice was barely a whisper. "Did you find everything you needed today?" I nodded, paid, walked away. As I pushed my cart toward the exit, I heard her young supervisor quietly reminding her to smile more for customers. For the first time since moving to Pine Valley Estates, the neighborhood felt peaceful. People planted pink roses if they wanted. Cars were whatever color their owners chose. Porch lights glowed freely. The world had not collapsed into aesthetic chaos. Somewhere behind me, Barbara rang up another customer. Her once fearsome authority reduced to the soft beep of a barcode scanner. And for the first time since she'd moved into my life, the neighborhood finally exhaled.